Marcus, older now, put a hand on your shoulder. Still the same idiot, he said quietly. You left for the first time that day. It felt necessary and completely appropriate. Years later, your daughter asked you to write down the whole story, start to finish. You told her about Walter, the letter, the 9 years, and everything that followed. She asked why you waited so long to tell everyone the truth about the money. I was scared it would change how people saw me, you admitted honestly. Years later, did it? She asked simply. You thought about it carefully before answering her. Yes, you said, just not in the way I was afraid of. It made people closer. She wrote that sentence down carefully, underlining it twice in her notebook. I want to build something like this someday, she said, but without the 9 years of hiding. That's the whole point, you told her. You already know what took me 9 years to learn. At 61, you finally visited the town where Walter had spent his final years alone. You found the small office building where his empire had actually started, decades earlier. A plaque outside mentioned nothing about him, just the building's original construction date. You stood there for a long while, thinking about how quietly a life can disappear, unless someone chooses, deliberately, to leave something more than money behind them. You thought about your daughter, your family, the honesty rebuilt over years of effort. That, you realized, was the actual inheritance, not the $12 million from a stranger. The real inheritance was learning, the hard way, what secrecy costs a person over time. You flew home 2 days later, back to a family who knew every part of your story. Alana picked you up at the airport, older now, still steady, still choosing you every day. How was it? She asked, taking his hand as they walked to the car together. Necessary, you told her. I think I finally understand the whole thing now. That evening, your whole family gathered for dinner, 3 generations around the same table. Your grandchildren asked, as children always do, where the money in the family came from. You told them the whole story, start to finish, exactly as it had happened. No sealed letters, no 9 years of silence waiting for them somewhere down the line. Just a story, told honestly, about a stranger's gift and the lessons it eventually taught. Your daughter added her own part of the story, about learning the business transparently. The family's wealth had become, over decades, something built on openness rather than distance. Walter's note still hung framed in your study, a permanent reminder of where it started. You were the only one who never asked me for anything. You understood it fully now. It hadn't been a compliment. It had been a warning, disguised as one, about isolation. UD almost repeated Walter's mistake. 9 years of silence nearly became a permanent pattern. Instead, you chose differently, eventually, before the silence hardened into something unbreakable. That choice, more than the $12 million, became the actual legacy you'd leave behind. Your daughter will tell this story to her own children someday, differently than you did. She'll tell it from the very beginning, with none of the 9 years of hiding. That's the part that actually mattered, not the money, the choice to finally be known. $12 million had arrived from a stranger who died completely alone. It became, eventually, the foundation for a family who chose not to repeat his ending. 9 years of silence taught you the cost, the decades after taught you the value of ending it. Somewhere in that balance, between the secrecy and the honesty, you found the actual inheritance. Not $12 million, not $70 million, just the choice to finally be seen. Walter left you money because you never asked him for anything at all. You left your family something different, the permission to ask you for anything, always. You started a modest college fund in her name, this time openly, with no hiding. She'll grow up knowing exactly where things come from. That felt like the real gift. You sold the logistics company at 41 for a substantial profit, this time under your name. The 40 employees learned who'd actually owned their jobs for the past 5 years. Some were surprised, most just shrugged. The work had stayed exactly the same either way. At 42, the portfolio crossed $50 million, openly managed with Alana as co-trustee. You still drove a modest sedan. Old habits from 9 years of hiding stayed comfortable. The difference now was Alana knew exactly why the car stayed modest, and agreed with it. Your mother's treatment continued successfully. She lived to see her granddaughter turn 12. Claire became a nurse, debt-free, working at the same hospital that once treated your mother. Marcus started his own small construction company, backed by a business loan you co-signed openly. This time it wasn't anonymous. Marcus knew exactly who'd helped, and thanked you directly. You thought often about Walter as short note, you Ray the only one who never asked me for anything. You understood it fully now. Walter had built walls because asking always came with expectation. You built the same walls initially, out of fear of becoming exactly what Walter was. The difference was you eventually chosen to tear the walls down before they became permanent. 9 years of silence had taught you something Walter's 37 years never resolved. Money doesn't have to isolate you, secrecy does. Those are two entirely different things. At 45, you visited Walter's grave for the first time, alone, on a quiet afternoon. The headstone was simple, no mention of the empire he built, or the money he left. You said thank you out loud, to a man you never met but understood completely now. You told him, in your own way, that you hadn't repeated his final years of isolation. You drove home that evening to a house full of people who knew exactly who you were. Elena greeted you at the door, your daughter running to hug you immediately. Your mother was there too, healthy, laughing with Claire in the kitchen nearby. Marcus and his wife joined for dinner that night, an ordinary Tuesday made whole. 9 years of secrecy had cost you something real, distance, time, unnecessary loneliness. But the last 3 years of honesty had given back more than the money ever could. Your daughter asked that night what Walter was like, you didn't have many answers. I think he was lonely, you told her honestly. I think he didn't know how not to be. But he gave you something good, she said simply, in the way only children can. He gave me the chance to learn something before it was too late, you replied. You thought about all the anonymous checks, the quiet corrections, the 9 years of distance. None of it had been wasted, exactly. But you learned it too slowly, too carefully. The money had never been the hard part was learning to be known. At 50, the portfolio crossed $70 million, managed openly with a small family office. Your daughter, now 17, worked summers at the family's real estate holdings, learning everything openly. She'll inherit knowledge Walter never gave anyone. Context, history, and the reasons behind every decision. I want to understand all of it, she told you, not just receive it someday. You promised her transparency from the start, no sealed letters, no unexplained silence. Your mother passed peacefully at 78, surrounded by family who all knew the whole story. At her funeral, Claire spoke about the mysterious grant that once paid for her nursing school. I found out years later who it really was, she said, looking directly at you. The whole room learned that day about 9 years of quiet, anonymous family support. Nobody treated you differently afterward. The money had never been the point of who you were. That difference, small as it seemed, changed everything about how the story actually ended. 9 years of hiding had cost you time you can never fully get back. But the decades of honesty that followed gave back more than the silence ever took. That's the part nobody tells you about inherited money. The silence costs more than taxes ever will. $12 million changed your bank account. Choosing honesty changed your entire family's story. Walter died alone with an empire nobody understood. You Ray growing old surrounded by people who do. That's the part the $12 million never explained. That's the part that mattered most. She sat quietly for a long time before asking the question that mattered most. Why didn't you tell me before we got married? You didn't have a clean answer. I didn't wanted to change how you saw me, you finally said quietly. It already has, she said, just not in the way you were afraid of. She wasn't angry about the money, she was hurt about 9 years of distance. I thought we built this life together, she said. Turns out half of it was fake. The love wasn't fake, you said. Just the ordinary part around it. She didn't take your hand that night. She needed time you cold and rush. You slept on the couch that night, staring at the ceiling, replaying 9 years. You thought about Walter, alone in his office for decades, trusting almost nobody. You wondered if you built the exact same isolation, just with better disguises. The next morning, Elena sat across from you again, calmer, more measured. I need to understand why, she said, not the money. The 9 years of silence. You told her about your father's silence around Walter's name. The unexplained rift. You told her about growing up watching money create distance instead of closeness. I was scared the money would do to us what it did to my family, you said. Elena sat with that for a long moment, then she asked what happens now. You told her everything moving forward would be transparent. No more separate accounts. She opened the folder slowly, seeing the full scope for the first time. $34 million, an 11-property portfolio, and a logistics company neither of you had discussed. This is insane, she said quietly, not angry anymore, just genuinely stunned. You told her about the anonymous help to your mother, your sister, to Marcus. She hadn't known any of that either. It reframed 9 years of quiet decisions. You've been carrying this completely alone, she said. That landed harder than the anger had. You hadn't thought of it that way. You'd just thought of it as managing it. Elena asked to be part of the decisions going forward, not just informed of them. You agreed immediately. The relief of shared weight was instant and physical. Over the following months, you told your mother the truth, carefully, in person. She cried, not from anger, but from finally understanding where the help had come from. You did all that for me, she said, for 9 years. And never said anything, you told Claire next, over coffee at her small apartment near the nursing school. She left first, then cried, then asked why you never just told her. I didn't want you to see me differently, you said. She said that ship had sailed. Marcus was the hardest conversation, 9 years of friendship built on a partial truth. You told him about the truck, the anonymous program that never actually existed. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then he asked if you trusted him at all. It was never about trust, you said. It was about not knowing who I'd become to you. Marcus sat with that for a while. Their friendship had survived worse honest conversations. You Ray still the same idiot who helped me move 3 times. Marcus finally said. That became the foundation you rebuilt from. Honesty. Slowly. Deliberately. One relationship at a time. You didn't quit your job at the insurance company. That surprised almost everyone who found out. Why still work here? A coworker finally asked once word slowly got around. Because I like knowing exactly why I show up every day. You told her honestly. The money had never been about escaping the ordinary, just about having a choice within it. Your daughter turned 9 the year the truth finally settled into your family's daily life. Married life started ordinary, a rented townhouse, 2 incomes, a joint checking account, the trust stayed separate, untouched, growing quietly in accounts she never saw. Your financial advisor moved the money into commercial real estate, following Walter's original playbook. 2 small office buildings in Cincinnati, a strip mall outside Dayton, quiet, unremarkable assets. By 31, the 12 million had grown to 19 through patient compounding. Elena got pregnant that spring. You felt something shift, a new kind of fear. A child changes the math of secrecy. What happens if something happens to you? You updated the trust to include a guardian clause nobody in your family knew existed. Your daughter was born in October. You held her and thought about Walter's note. You Ray the only one who never asked me for anything. Now you understood it differently. Walter had spent decades being asked for things by people who never really knew him. You wondered if that's why he left it to a nephew who'd never met him. Your daughter's first years passed in ordinary rhythms. Daycare, pediatrician visits, small milestones. Elena went back to work as a physical therapist. You stayed at the insurance company. You turned down 2 promotions that would have required relocating and drawing more attention. Staying invisible mattered more than climbing. Nobody understood why you kept refusing growth. Your mother's health declined at 59. A diagnosis that required expensive ongoing treatment. The treatment cost $80,000 a year, not covered by her limited insurance. This time, you didn't hesitate for even a day. You called your advisor immediately. You set up a medical trust in her name, routed through a hospital foundation program. She was told she qualified for a rare regional assistance grant. She never questioned it. You sat beside her during the first treatment, holding her hand, saying nothing about the money. I don't know how we got this lucky, she said. You just nodded quietly. Elena noticed something that year, a quiet steadiness in you during the crisis. You Ray handling this so well, she said one night. You just said you had to. The lie wasn't dramatic. It was just a series of small omissions, stacking quietly. By 34, the portfolio had grown past 30 million. You still drove the Corolla. A colleague at work joked once that you lived like someone hiding something. You left it off. The comment stayed with you longer than you expected. Your daughter turned 5. She started asking why some kids had bigger houses. You told her some families just have different things. It felt like a half-truth. You wondered what she'd think someday, learning the whole truth all at once. At 36, a business opportunity appeared through your advisor. A logistics company for sale. You bought it quietly through the trust, keeping your name off every public document. The company employed 40 people who had no idea who actually owned it now. You visited once, introduced simply as a consultant reviewing operational efficiency. Nobody there recognized your name. That anonymity had become its own strange comfort. Your closest friend, Marcus, worked construction and struggled through a rough year financially. His truck broke down permanently that winter. Repairs would cost more than it was worth. You bought him a reliable used truck through a company incentive program that didn't exist. Your employer had never run such a program. Marcus never thought to question it twice. These quiet corrections became a rhythm, help arriving from nowhere. Explained away simply. At 38, Elena found a bank statement she wasn't supposed to see. A balance with too many zeros for an insurance underwriter's modest household account. She confronted you that night, the statement placed quietly on the kitchen table. "What is this?" she asked. Her voice was calm, which somehow made it worse. You told her everything, Walter, the letter, the 9 years of careful silence. You were 26 years old, standing in a lawyer's office, and nothing makes sense. The letter in front of you says $12 million. You read it 3 times. You've never met the man who left it to you. Not once, not really. His name was Walter, your grandfather as estranged younger brother. A stranger with your last name. You grew up hearing his name exactly twice. Both times in anger, your father called him the one who left. Nothing more was ever explained. You grew up in a 2-bedroom rental in Toledo, Ohio. Nothing extra. Ever. Your mother worked 2 jobs. Your father drove a delivery route 6 days a week. You wore your older cousin's hand-me-downs until you were 14 years old. Money was never mentioned directly. It was just always, quietly, not enough. Walter, meanwhile, had built something enormous, a commercial real estate empire out east. Nobody in your family spoke to him after 1987. The reason was never fully explained. You asked your father once, at 16, why Walter never called. He just left the room. That was the last time you ever asked. The subject stayed permanently closed. Your father passed when you were 23. A heart attack, sudden, on a Tuesday. Walter didn't attend. Nobody expected him to. You didn't think about him again. 3 years later, a letter arrived from a law firm in Connecticut. You almost threw it away, thinking it was a scam. You opened it instead. Walter had died childless, unmarried, and estranged from everyone except one name in his will. Yours, the nephew he never once called in 37 years. The lawyer explained it plainly. Commercial properties, stock holdings, cash reserves, 12 million total. You asked why. The lawyer said Walter left a short note, sealed separately. The note said only this: "You Ray, the only one who never asked me for anything." You sat with that sentence for a long time. You never even met the man. Driving home, you didn't feel rich. You felt like you inherited a stranger's guilt. You worked as an underwriter at a regional insurance company. $52,000 a year. You lived in a 1-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. $600 a month. Your girlfriend at the time, Elena, thought you were exactly what you appeared to be. An ordinary guy with a steady job and a used Corolla with 140,000 miles on it. You told nobody about the money. Not Elena, not your mother, not a single friend. The first reason was simple: you didn't know what to do with it yet. You hired a financial advisor to states away, someone with no connection to your life. You set up a trust with a name that meant nothing to anyone who knew you. You kept your same job, same apartment, same Corolla with the cracked side mirror. The money sat quietly, growing, while your life outside looked exactly the same. Your mother struggled that year. Her hours at the diner got cut in half. You could have paid off her mortgage in a single afternoon. You didn't tell her. Instead, you sent an anonymous cashier's check through a small local charity fund. She never knew where it came from. She thought it was a county assistance program. You watched her relief from across the room and said absolutely nothing. That became the pattern, help arriving through channels nobody could trace back to you. Your sister, Claire, was working toward a nursing degree with crushing student loan debt. You paid off $11,000 of it through a scholarship fund she never questioned. She called you thrilled about the news. You said that as amazing, genuinely meaning it. 2 years passed. Elena proposed marriage. Half joking, at a diner booth one night. You said yes, you meant it completely. The secret sat quietly beside the joy. You planned a modest wedding, 200 guests, a rented hall, a reasonable budget. You could have paid for anything she wanted. You split costs like anyone would. The night before the wedding, you almost told her everything. You didn't. You told yourself you'd tell her eventually. Eventually kept quietly moving further away.